So officially, hello everybody. It is February 14th, 2017, and this is the virtual chapter of On the Air. Somebody's got telephones ringing, which is the world is in motion, and we appreciate that. They're just trying to get a message to somebody, and that's an important thing. It is Valentine's Day. And I'll tell you what my favorite thing about Valentine's Day is that it means tomorrow there will be a sale on chocolates everywhere. So, so what a wonderful day it is. Our topic tonight is officially, I don't remember exactly the words that I used, I'm afraid to say, but anchoring and states in NLP. When we were talking about anchoring, I sort of joked with Mark, we could call it anchor management. And that might be a way to think about it. But first, just by way of introducing NLP, let me just say something about Mark, and then we'll do this. Mark is one of the people, of all the folks at IACT and IMDHA and SALAD and all of those organizations. I've known Mark longer than any single one of them. I have known him for 33 years now. I've discovered, and so that's quite a while. Because I took my original NLP training from Mark's parents, Steve and Connie Ray Andreas, who are just to me the greatest and the best, and the training team that they put together in Colorado at the beginning of this adventure that we call NLP was just such an important force for getting NLP out into the world, and couldn't have done better. Mark runs an NLP change coaching private practice for individuals from around the world, meeting both in person and over Skype. He trains throughout the States and internationally as well. And this includes training with NLP of the Rockies, who offers an NLP practitioner training, a residential training, especially dear to me, up in Winter Park, Colorado. I was involved with that training with Mark last year. Hopefully we're going to do it again this summer, so that's really quite cool. And if that weren't enough, he is the author of Sweet Fruit from the Bitter Tree, which is 61 stories of creative and compassionate ways out of conflict, and a really, really great read. And another book called Waltzing with Wolverines, Finding Connection and Cooperation with Troubled Teens, based on some work that he did with a wilderness program. So thanks for being here with us, Mark. We are so happy to have you on the call tonight.
Great to be here.
And we have a question on the floor. So for those joining in, Steve was asking us, he says he's a little more, if I misparaphrase you, Steve, feel free to just jump right in. But that he was trained in a more, traditional hypnosis, and isn't a huge fan of NLP. But he knows that I am, and that's got him curious and wondering what it is that I think is so special about NLP. Is that close enough?
Close enough.
All right. Well, okay. So I think that NLP is the most special thing since they started slicing bread, because what it really I started out in this field by, I have a long story that takes me back to the priesthood, and I literally was doing pastoral counseling for the Diocese of Chicago in the Episcopal Church when somebody pointed out that these processes that I were doing were hypnosis. I thought they were, we called them meditation, and that's kind of how we were working in pastoral counseling in the mid-70s. Guided imagery processes and all that stuff was the real current thing to do. And when I found out that it was hypnosis, I thought, well, I need to know a little bit more about that. And I took a course. In fact, I literally moved to Houston, Texas, because I found out somebody was teaching a course there, and I didn't know that you could learn hypnosis all over the place. I just thought, oh my God, there's somebody who actually teaches hypnosis, and although they're thousands of miles away, I might as well go there. So I moved to Houston, and I took this course, which was actually only 30 hours long. It was 10 weeks, 3 hours a week on, I think, a Wednesday night or some weeknight. And quite frankly, it wasn't very good. But I learned how to do inductions, which always sort of had a kind of a natural skill with, and learned how to do even deeper inductions. And thanks to the class that I had taken. And at the end of it all, I realized that I was still looking for how to be effective with this hypnotic toolbox that I had. And the lady that was teaching the hypnosis program was enrolled in a very early NLP practitioner training that was going on in Houston at the time. Leslie Cameron Bandler, the wife of one of the founders of NLP, and another woman, Meetha Singleton, were teaching a class. And my teacher was in this course. So she started telling me a little bit about NLP, gave me this book, Frogs into Princes, written by Mark's parents, or edited by Mark's parents, I should say, from transcripts of Bandler and Grinder working, Mark's dad specifically. And it was like a light went on, because now I understood, while I was speaking to this person's unconscious mind, I had more information about what was actually happening in there and what needed to happen in order for them to make the changes that they want. I don't know what the fastest answer is to tell you, but it wasn't so much that NLP gave me a collection of techniques, although there certainly is a collection of techniques. But the techniques really are illustrations of principles about how consciousness works, how people sort of get stuck in the things that they get stuck in, what it takes to get them out of it, and how to change people's experience quickly and rapidly. Coupled with hypnosis, it was just the greatest gift that I could have asked for. And so it immediately empowered my practice. And now that's, 30-some years ago, 33 years ago since I got added NLP in, and 35 years since I started doing hypnosis. It's made all the difference in the world for me. I don't find myself wondering or worrying about what to do anymore. I'm more interested in kind of being with the person and finding out how they're doing this symptom that they're doing, because people don't understand. It's like, for example, I suggested it earlier in our talk before we went on the recording, that the people are creating their experience and suffering the results of it, particularly if they don't know or have the tools to be able to alter it. NLP is the study of the structure of subjective experience, and what it really points out is these are the places to look, these are the things to change, these are the specific things to pay attention to. I wouldn't have known from my hypnosis training that it made any difference when a person had an image in their mind to even ask them whether that image was really close up or far away. I probably wouldn't have even thought of the question. And there's so many questions that I wouldn't have known to ask, and areas of experience that I wouldn't have considered in my work. And now it turns out that just a little bit of information enables me to do some things that I wouldn't have had a clue about before.
Yeah, piggybacking off on that, I would say that my understanding of NLP, in a sense, is it is hypnosis at a very refined, descriptive level. There's a lot of distinctions and refinements of what hypnosis is, in a sense. Mm-hmm. So in some ways you could say that NLP is hypnosis, but I agree with you that NLP often has more refinements and distinctions than what you would get, at least in a lot of hypnosis courses.
In fact, one of the things that I consider is that there were changing laws going in California, really weird things going on with the law in California about the practice of hypnosis, right as NLP was breaking out of its shell. And one of the deals was for years and years, if a person wanted to be a licensed mental health counselor in the state of California, they actually needed to sign a statement under the direction of the Department of Behavioral Science Examiners, I guess, who's in charge of them all out there, saying that they would not use hypnosis in their practice because they were suspicious that hypnosis was not a good thing and no licensed therapist should be allowed to use it. So what happened in California was people like Gil Boyne getting the ACHE going, and Al Krasner getting the American Board of Hypnotherapy started, and various groups of lay people started doing and training hypnosis in California. And so this all went on for quite a while, and they were completely separate from the professional field. Right? Didn't talk to each other, didn't want to talk to each other. And then one day, the folks in Sacramento, California, discovered that maybe hypnosis is really valuable at all. Yeah, in fact, that's the ticket. Hypnosis is a really good thing. So as a matter of fact, not only do we think that it ought to be used in therapy, we were wrong about that, but that no one who is, only people who are licensed should be able to use it. And so for a minute, we're at this place in California where the only people who knew how to do hypnosis were no longer allowed. And the only people who were allowed to do hypnosis really had no experience with it because they hadn't been allowed before. And this is literally the period of time when NLP presents itself to the world. My sense is that so one of the first techniques in NLP is 6-step reframing, and essentially the first step in 6-step reframing asks the client to turn their attention inside and to establish communication with a part of them that's running an unwanted behavior. Now that really sounds like hypnosis to me. But
Sure.
But how much more convenient, since they couldn't practice hypnosis, to go, well, but this is not hypnosis. We have a name for it, and it's got a lot of letters. It performs very well on the Scrabble board, and and so it might have been in a more favorable climate. Hypnosis would actually be seen as a division of the field of hypnosis and hypnotherapy.
You mean NLP as a division?
I'm sorry. Yeah.
And John and Richard taught some excellent hypnosis courses too. Their book, I've just been reading their book Transformations recently, and I think they just have some really excellent framing around what hypnosis is and understanding how it is that it works. And
Absolutely. Yeah, so the new one is called Transformations, and the old one was Transformation, right? There's a couple books out with titles that are only one letter different in their name.
I think it was always Transformations.
The old one was?
I think so, but maybe I just didn't ever see the old one.
Yeah. Well, that's the one that your folks did is the old one that I'm talking about. There's one that's come out.
Oh, that's Transformations with an S is the one they did, yeah.
That one is really hard to find, by the way, sometimes, but I'll tell you what, it's one of my favorite books about hypnosis and hypnotic language. And the other thing to bear in mind is that hypnosis informs itself by learning. I'm sorry, NLP. I'm confusing them already. NLP informs itself by all that it learned from among other teachers and trainers, of course. But the modeling work that they did with Milton Erickson is such an important contribution.
Huge part, yeah.
So hypnosis really is part and parcel of NLP. And here's the thing that I know is there are folks in NLP who over-complexify things. I think that there is a truth to that. It's good to be able, like, scientifically to study things and academically to study things and get a depth of information. And I wouldn't fault NLP for that. In fact, I think NLP has really gone for depth in a lot of places, and that's a great and wonderful thing. On the other hand, in the world of practice, I find NLP practitioners who get like their first client and somehow or another think that the job is to explain all of that stuff to a practitioner or to a client.
Oh yeah.
You go to and it gets to be very, very tedious and I think off-putting. It's like if you went to the doctor and whenever you went to the doctor, he had to teach you how to do medicine.
Yeah. Well, that's, I think, a problem in any field when people start talking about it instead of just doing it.
But the complexity in NLP is not complexity for complexity's sake. It's complexity for further clarity.
Yeah. There can be a huge amount of understanding when you're working with somebody that you don't have to share with the other person to have the communication, the experience that you're wanting.
Absolutely. And bearing in mind that one of the two founders of NLP, John Grinder, is a world-class linguist and was before he ventured on this thing about NLP, it really studies language in ways that I think is beneficial, not just to NLP practitioners, but to hypnotists or to anybody that communicates or, or wants to be able to be aware of some sort of subtle things that happen in conversation or communication that have been flying by us unnoticed by our conscious minds for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
So I think I've certainly expressed the fact that I'm a fan. And on the other hand, I am really a hypnosis guy. In spite of that, it's because what I did to sort of get myself going is I had basically a background in hypnosis and a background in NLP, and at one point I went to the NLP community in Northern California, and I said, you've been teaching people, you've been telling people stories about Milton Erickson, and teaching them a couple of language patterns, but you really aren't teaching them how to do hypnosis, and there's a lot of folks that have an interest in that. So basically, I got the NLP community where I was, in that part of the country where I was, to bring me in to do hypnosis training, and I was teaching hypnosis to NLP people. And then I thought, well, gosh, the other thing that I can do then is I can approach the hypnosis organizations and bring NLP into the hypnosis organizations. So I just think it's quite cool because I managed to have my feet in both worlds, and they're great. There's nothing that I'm a former monk, and there's nothing I like better than trance work, as well. I have to confess, one of my favorite places to go is inside. It's really nice to have that. And I support both of them, and I wouldn't suggest anybody should choose one over the other or any of that stuff. That they're both great things. One of the reasons that we're having this talk tonight, by the way, I just might point out, is that, and this is actually the virtual chapter of IACT and IMDHA, so I might mention IACT and IMDHA have their annual conference coming up shortly, May 19th to the 21st at beautiful Daytona Beach. It's a great thing to do. And one of the things that's going to happen while we're there is that the day after the weekend, on Monday, Mark and I are doing a post-conference program for one day just about NLP for hypnotists, to sort of help people understand how it is that they might integrate some of the principles and things of NLP into the work that they do in hypnosis. And I'm really looking forward to doing that. I think it's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, likewise.
So maybe to get on with our topic, we were starting out, we were going to talk about anchoring and states, and I think everybody knows, particularly when I look at who's on the call now, I've got a sense of you, and there's nobody that is completely lost in this area. We've heard about Dr. Pavlov, of course, who's that lovely guy. But, they got the story wrong because, they had this idea that Pavlov was, like making the dogs salivate and, or something. But actually, somebody overheard the dogs having a conversation one night. And one of those dogs said to the other one, he says, watch what I can do. He says, I just salivate a little bit, and it makes Dr. Pavlov pick up that tablet of his and write down some notes. So, well, I thought it was funny, but you never know who's in control, right? So that's this kind of where the idea comes from. I mean, right? We've got this notion, and I think a lot of people have that hooked up to what anchoring is about, but it's a very crude and very simplistic understanding. In hypnosis, a lot of people like to do something about putting your thumb and finger together, right? You might use that with clients to re-access a state later on. And that's kind of a nice thing. It seems to work. And what we're doing is we're taking a state and associating it with a trigger, that is that thumb and finger gesture. By the way, yogis have been doing this for a little bit longer than neurolinguistic programmers or Pavlov, for that matter. So it takes people back to a state, and that could be useful in change work, if people have anxiety situations, maybe you've done your hypnosis with them, and a part of the suggestion you might have given them is, and if any time you find yourself feeling anxious, you can just put that thumb and finger together, and a state of calm will become available to you. Something like that, and and get some good results. And a lot of people have done that. So that's the really sort of basicest. I don't know if that's a word, but most basic. I think that's what it is in the English language form of anchoring that I can think of. But there's something. Actually, do you have anything on this that I don't want to just talk the whole time, Mark? So you can feel free to just kind of hop in on me anytime here.
Yeah, well, I think I'll hop in more towards the later part. I don't think I have anything more to say about just the basic anchor.
Okay.
Yeah, other than, it's basically just something that it's an association. So whether it's a state with a certain posture, or, you mentioned the yogis, they also had mantras that was a specific word that was associated with a state, or they had mandalas was, a visual anchor that was associated with a specific state. So just something that's unique enough that it's always associated with that state, and thus can elicit it.
Yeah, I used to have a yoga mat. It was my yoga mat. You know what I mean? And so I would roll it out. I would do my meditation on it. I would roll it back up. And when I traveled different places, it was almost like bringing that same little piece of earth with me. Yeah. Whenever I rolled that mat out, and it wouldn't have been right if it was some other mat, some other color, but I had literally built in that association. Yeah. So usually, and what people learn from NLP is they say, well, NLP is, you get a person in a state, and you either have them do that, or if it's not something like anchoring themselves, it's maybe anchoring with touch. And so they get a certain state, and when they get to that good feeling of confidence, you touch them on the arm, and the idea is that later on during the session, if you need to sort of bring that state back, you can reach out and touch them in the same way. But I would suggest it's more than just touching them in the same way. It's touching them in the same way with the same intent, and probably using the same tone of voice, and kind of encouraging them to move in a particular direction. It's not a magic button so much as it's a reminder of the thing that it's associated with. And what we want clients to experience, I think, if you have a client, for example, who has a hard time dealing with his mother-in-law, it's funny. I say the word mother-in-law, and in my head, I hear the music for the Wicked Witch of the West. It just starts. It starts automatically. So
that's your anchor for.
Oh yeah, it's an absolutely great anchor. So they're challenged with the mother-in-law for whatever it is, and they've decided, well, I need to keep my cool around my mother-in-law. I need to be more patient with her or something, and I'm gonna see a hypnotist or an NLP person or something to work on this. If the notion is that now they've got this button, and whenever you see your mother-in-law, if you start to get impatient, you can, push the button. That will be okay. What I'd like them to do is to not ever have to think about the problem again. So what I want is the real world to provide the button, and I can't think of a button that would be better than the mother-in-law herself.
Exactly.
So that the next time they see the mother-in-law, they have these feelings of patience or whatever it is they need.
Take out the middleman.
Yeah, exactly right.
Yeah.
And I think that's a refinement that really is helpful. It's the way to make change to make change be that automatic. And one of the first places that we saw that was in Virginia Satir, who I wanted to mention, because what Virginia did is she actually used anchors, and even could be even these physical touches and things that we're talking about, but to manage states during the course of a session.
Mm-hmm.
And then the change would spill out into the world, and the anchors wouldn't be needed at that point. So if she was working with a couple, for example, that were having difficulties in their relationship, she might have them sitting side by side, and sitting across from them. And she would ask them, she's out of all of the people in the world that could possibly have gotten together in a relationship, I'm really interested in how the two of you happened to choose each other. How did you find each other? What was it like, when you first met each other? And of course, what she's doing is she's moving them to a place where they're remembering, when it was all good and special and wonderful. And when they've got those good, warm feelings going, she might reach out and touch them in a certain way. Possibly, given how the chairs might be arranged, she might reach out and touch them on the knee or something. And in a way that doesn't seem, it's like, not like, now I'm going to anchor you, or something like that. But it's just the same kind of gesture that you might use with somebody that you know well, and they express something and you reach out and you just touch them naturally or something. So to just sort of touch them on the knee and say, that's nice, or isn't that lovely, or, something like that to reinforce the thing.
And you can even just be very overt about it and say, I'm just going to touch you right here to stabilize this experience for you, and we can come back to this at any time.
Nice, yeah.
I think a lot of people get the idea that it has to be all sneaky.
Yeah. Well, the thing about Virginia, by the way, is not that it was sneaky, because the truth of the matter is it was just natural.
Yeah.
It was Virginia being Virginia, and then people looked at it and they said, well, look what's happening here, and look at the effect of it. So, so she gets this with one of the person in the couple, she gets this with the other person in the couple, and then the session goes on, and and if you work with couples, once in a while, they tend to get unresourceful because if they're both in your office at the same time and they're having trouble dealing with each other, and they can get into a squabble. When the squabbling would start, Virginia would interrupt the pattern somehow or another with some kind of a distracting element. But then she might lean back in and touch them both, on their knees at the same time and say, now, where were we again? And this brings back is again that reminder, literally in the neurology, of these better times, these good feelings.
Yeah.
And an invitation for them to talk from and to interact from that place.
Yeah.
I think that's just exquisite.
Yeah.
And again, particularly because, Virginia Satir is not an NLP practitioner.
Yep.
Of course, Milton Erickson is not a certified hypnotherapist either.
Yeah.
And
in terms of the Virginia Satir story, I think it's, especially in working with two people there, I have an imagination that she might be using, touching somebody on the knee and accessing a certain state in them, as she's also speaking to the other couple and accessing something through the verbal anchors and voice tone anchors too. So there could be multiple layers going on at the same time that way. Yeah, my preference has always been to use more of the verbal anchoring and not mess around with the touching so much. Just because I think that, but I think they're all useful and just valuable to see how all of, whether you're using touch or using voice tone or using a specific word, that these are all anchors to different states, and you can use them all to guide somebody to where you're wanting them to be, and to come back to them if you're wanting to bring them back to a state. Yeah.
Watch a football team come out of a huddle. By the way, right? I mean, these are things. If there's a break or some kind of a cheer or a shout that goes out or whatever it is, and people don't know that they're doing that, but that's exactly the point, is that anchoring is something that just occurs in nature. We just do this. What NLP did is it took the time to notice it and to codify it and to say, here's something about how it is that you actually can take advantage of what already is happening, and use it deliberately. Any attaboy that you ever got, is an anchor to some set of good feelings that it would be associated with.
Yeah. The other.
Okay.
I guess the main reason why I tend not to use the physical anchors so much is that usually there's already some anchor already present that I can just use. So I think it was Charles Faulkner who was the first one who told me, you can create an anchor, or you can hunt them in the wild, and and basically just utilize the anchors that are already set up. So if I'm, for example, the Virginia Satir story that you just told, and the person is sharing a little bit about their experience of being in love, and they might take a breath and sigh and say, "Oh, it's just wonderful," or something like that. And there you have an anchor already. There's no need necessarily to set anything up. You can always take that breath and sigh and go, "Oh, yeah, it's just wonderful." Or so remember that place where you just, it's wonderful. Yeah, that.
Yeah.
When you have that anchor already set, and so it can be more efficient to not even have to bother setting something up. Although Virginia did it very efficiently, the way that she.
Sure. Yeah. Well, but I think this is one thing that we've gotten more sophisticated about since the earliest days of NLP, and quite frankly, in some of the earliest NLP trainings, I think people used to joke about what they were calling squeeze knees therapy.
Mm-hmm.
And all anchors seem to, because we were sitting across each other in dyads, and we were getting one state and getting an anchor, and getting another state and getting an anchor, right? And it seemed to default to physical anchors at the very beginning. And I don't know why it was that we went there, because the other ones to me are much more obvious. You've probably got somebody in your life, for example, that, or you could imagine somebody in your life that has that certain tone of voice, that just takes you somewhere. Whenever you hear that, it's like my mother. Well, actually, whenever I hear my middle name from my mother, I know that I'm in trouble. In spite of
That's the only reason for middle name.
I'm sorry?
That's the only reason for middle names.
Yeah, exactly right. That and
I was lucky. My parents never bothered to give me a middle name, so they deprived themselves of that anchor.
Oh, how lovely! And you've missed out of the opportunity to feel guilt and shame and so many useful emotions. Yeah. So, but there's that. So sometimes it's like there's a certain tone of voice, and you hear that tone of voice, and it literally changes your state. By the way, music, if you think about it.
I was waiting for that.
Yeah, well, it's an induction, isn't it? I mean, what's the purpose of writing a piece of music if it isn't to change the state of the people that are listening to it?
Mm-hmm.
In fact, what's the purpose of doing hypnosis if it isn't to change the state of the people that are listening to it? So what we're really talking about is what are the mechanisms, that are available to do that, and what kind of states do you want to be able to lead people to that you can get anchors for that would be useful. And there's people with that certain look too. Don't give me that look. Usually is said by somebody who has just felt something in response to a glare from somebody, or right.
And what you just said just clarified something in my mind just now too. Is if you're able to guide somebody to a state, you already have all of the anchors.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, you wouldn't have been able to just do that.
Yeah.
So
now, some anchors, to be fair, like the finger things, but really all of it, when you see the mother-in-law's face, even if we connect it to that, from the standpoint of people that are more hypnotically oriented or more traditional hypnotists, I would say that there's a way to think about these in terms of being post-hypnotic suggestions. It's interesting to say that in the future, whenever you see that face, it will move you to this particular state, and yet essentially that's what post-hypnotic suggestions are set up to do.
Yeah.
So we've talked about kind of some basics about anchoring, the fact that anchors occur in nature, the fact that they occur in all of the representational systems. It's not just gestures and touches. By the way, gestures as well as touches, and anything that you can see. Mandalas is a great thought. By the way, again, motion pictures. Being a film fan, or any great piece of art, its intention is to move you somewhere. So who knows what kind of hypnotist the artist may have been, or what kind of a trance they might have been when they were putting that together. But it still ultimately is a way of getting access to states from people, which is more important than anchoring, by the way. It's the reason that we do anchoring. Right? So ultimately, the issue in doing good change work is being able to get good access to useful states in the first place.
Yeah, and then to match them up in the areas where you want, when you see the mother-in-law's face, or that becomes the new anchor for the state.
Exactly. Yeah. So, in fact, by the way, this is one of the things that I really have to give kudos to Tony Robbins for. And not disparagingly, by the way, it's not particularly my style, and I'm not really a fan. But I've got to appreciate the fact that when we first saw Tony working, something that was clear was that he was getting really strong, robust power states out of people. You could see them shifting while they were talking to him, and often we have practitioners who will ask a client to remember a time when you just felt wonderful, that the world was your oyster, everything was going your way, life was great and spectacular, and the client says, "Okay, I got one." I'm like, and if you're foolish enough to anchor that because you think that you've got something, what you've got is an idea about a state. You've got something meta to a state. They might know a memory with that, where that exists, but they haven't really, gotten into that yet. So
dissociated.
Of course, yeah. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just saying it's dissociated. Yeah.
So we've given credit to Tony Robbins, and of course in NLP there's a bazillion techniques that are built around anchoring. There's integrating polarities. Anytime you run into the situation of a part of me wants to and a part of me wants to, this is something that you can do. There's adding resources, or where you take a useful resource and get an anchor to it so that you can manage. Again, for the purpose of managing it during the session, you get an anchor to it with the idea, then where is it that you want to apply this? Where is it that you want to make this more available in your life? And you get an anchor for that context. And then you can put these things together so that now the next time they're in that situation, the situation itself becomes the anchor.
Yeah.
To reactivate that powerful state. And that's really what we want to do for people. How are we doing on time? Oh my gosh, it's almost 9 o'clock. So I'm going to shut up. I've done 2/3 of the talking or more, probably more. My father used to tell me that I had been vaccinated with a phonograph needle. And, and the funny thing is, now half of the people that I talk to don't even know what a phonograph is. So,
yeah.
But I just thought I'd just kind of open it up because Pedro and Steve, if you have any questions or anything that you want to say, we'd love to hear from you in these minutes that we've got left.
I would like to hear Mark talk a little bit.
Yeah, talk, Mark.
Sure. I'll talk. Well, another thing that occurred to me in terms of the anchoring topic that can be really useful, and in terms of hunting them in the wild, talked about obviously, I think in every client session that I am a part of, certainly using the person's words, not paraphrasing it into my own words, but using their words is going to elicit their experience, even if I don't know too much about it. And that's where it's very like the hypnotic, the Milton model language patterns of being artfully vague, or just artfully using the other person's words, even if I don't know exactly what they refer to. If I can tell that this is the state they're going for, then all I need to do is use those words, and that's an anchor to that state. And more importantly, the voice tone too that goes along with those words. So that's kind of the verbal that I use. I'm very aware of using all of the time. And then also gesturally can be really important and spatially. So if somebody is talking to me and they're using their gestures in a certain way and they go, oh God, yeah, this has like really been a problem for me. Now I know where they have their problem right here. And, you know, and then they say, oh gosh, I'd really like things to be better. Now I can just reach over and gesture to those spaces and they'll know exactly what I'm talking to because they've already anchored the problem here and the solution here. And I have a quick example that was kind of fun of somebody he was talking to me about his problem writing. He was a writer and he wanted to get writing, but he had writer's block, and he was describing it all. He's like, yeah, it's dark and I just don't know where to start, and it's like I can't see clearly how to begin the project. And he's gesturing down here and he goes, I wish it was just all clearly laid out and I knew where to start, and it's just I could see, you know, see the writing on the pages. And I kind of jokingly just reached over and said, oh, well, all you need to do is this. And I grabbed I went chunk, and I just took the bottom one and put it up there in the top one. And he goes, oh my God, what did you just do to me? And he said it felt like a mind meld. And that was all I did with that. But he actually reported later that he gained a lot of clarity and he had a sense of the project, and he started working on it just from utilizing his anchors and bringing where he was experiencing the problem, putting it there in his resource, collapsing those anchors, to use the NLP jargon.
Lovely story.
Yeah.
So Mark, I wonder if before we say goodbye, you're going to be doing at the conference also, you're going to be doing a short program on Waltzing with Wolverines, your book about working with kids and stuff. And, I'm fascinated with that. I'm fascinated with the work and stuff. So can you just give us sort of a little short description of
happy to.
Of what you're up to there?
Yeah, so it's based on the 2 years that I spent in wilderness therapy. So it was working with teenagers that were in a backpacking wilderness program that didn't want to be there. Is kind of the nutshell situation. So I had a lot of resistance, a lot of FU, a lot of trying to push my buttons or run away or get into all kinds of mischief. And so the program that I'm going to be teaching is all about how to be an effective leader. These things apply certainly in a therapeutic context, but also just in any relationship with teens, or really with anyone, because we're all teenagers at times still. And so it's all about how to be an effective leader, how to connect and have a relationship and still be setting appropriate boundaries and not getting into power control battles. And if I were to boil it down to kind of the key element that I'll be talking about in hypnosis and NLP, there's a lot of focus on how to have influence with other people, and which is wonderful. And it can be difficult still, and sometimes it still doesn't work. And so a lot of what I'm going to be talking about is is the power of accepting no control and what that can do in a relationship, and actually paradoxically give you a lot of power in acknowledging that you actually have no power. So
nice.
Should be a lot of fun.
It should be. And in fact, it's a longer program. I mean, it's like a couple of hours for 3 hours, 2 hours, 3 hours.
Yeah.
Yeah. Great. Well, all right. So that said, we have recorded this program tonight. It will be posted on the IMDHA forum tomorrow, if not sooner, maybe even before I get to bed tonight. And if you're a member, all you got to do is log into the forum and you'll find it there. Also, by the way, you can take an hour of CEUs for here if you're a member of IACT or IMDHA. And the way that you do that is you log into the member website with your regular ID. And when you log into the members area, there's a little box that pops up where you can tell them that you attended this marvelous evening on Valentine's Day with Mark Andreas and Michael Watson. And because it was the two of us, you probably should get 2 hours. one for each of us, and, you know, and see how that flies. So anyway, I really appreciate that you did this with us tonight, Mark, and even Pedro, that you were here, being that it is the day before the Great Chocolate Sale, because I know some folks are probably already lining up at their local stores. So so thanks for being with us. And by the way, Sunday nights from now until April 25th, at the same time, same bat channel, we're doing the IMDHA Presenter Series, where people that are doing post-conference programs are actually presenting more specifically about their conference. I mean, the virtual chapter tends to be a little bit more general topics and, and a little more, I think, a little more casual. But I'm interviewing everybody, so 15 weeks worth of Sunday nights. So join us if you haven't yet. And same time, like I said, 8 o'clock Sunday. And the next one will be, the next one I am going to be interviewing Ralph Alaco, who is doing training on the ultra depth technique. You might be familiar with it. It comes from Walter Secord way back in the day, and it's quite interesting. So that will be Sunday night, and you can use the login, the very link that you used to log in here tonight to get to that call at 8 o'clock. So thanks, everybody. Thank you, Mark.
Yeah, great to see you again, Pedro, and nice to meet you. Was it Steve?
Steve.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Michael.
Thank you, Steve and
It was a
Pedro.
pleasure to speak.
Thank you, Mark.
Happy Valentine's, y'all.
Happy Valentine's.
All right. See you soon. I'll be in summer in the summer training
Excellent.
this year as well.
Oh.
So
Great.
looking
Awesome.
forward to see you.
Yeah. Maybe I'll be able to visit you down in Costa Rica someday, too.
Oh, that'd be fantastic.
It'd be awesome.
I might retire there. I've considered it.
It's a good
Yeah.
place to retire. Yeah.
I hear.
All
Take care, everybody. Good night.
right, take care.
Good night.
Michael, thanks, Mark.